guys, Sid from Sid's Trains here, and today I'm going to be showing you my K-Line Crusader that I have recently upgraded to Tmcc and rail sounds. So as I said before, this is my K-Line Crusader, and this is part of a set that I bought at my second time going to the York train show about a year and a half ago. And I bought it, and originally this train was a conventionally controlled train with just a puffing smoke unit, and it did have a sound system, and here is the soundboard. This is the soundboard, and what the sound system that was in this was called Real Sounds. Not rail sounds, but real sounds. This was K-Line's attempt to give their train sounds, and it didn't really work because once I got it, I put the 9-volt battery that they said you needed to use, and the sounds turned on. The whistle did not work, and the bell didn't work, and all it did was sit there and kind of just make random sounds, and when the engine was moving, it would just kind of chuff, and then stop chuffing, and then chuff again, and it was just kind of a junky sound system, and most people don't like that sound system. I usually like factory sound systems, but this was just a very bad sound system. This is probably worse than the Lionel Mighty Sound of Steam. It just did not work at all. So I took it out since it just stopped working. And for a little while, I just had a engine that had actually this smoke unit. This is the smoke unit that was in it before. And let me show you. Yeah, here's the whole setup. It's a piston style smoke unit similar to what was in American Flyer trains. And that's what was in it originally. But I'll tell you all about the upgrades I've done in a few minutes. But yeah, this is what was in it, and it was just a conventionally controlled train with just lights and the smoke unit for a little while. And I ran it some. I showed it in some of my videos, and that's about all I did. And then for a long time, it just sat on my shelves over here on the wall. It just sat on those shelves for about like 3 months, and I just kept looking at it and was tired of it just sitting there. So I finally decided I'm going to start to upgrade it to command control and rail sounds and just do the best I could to make this a very nice engine that has command control, rail sounds, a good smoke unit which I've now added, and some other nice features that I'll be talking about in a second. Let me move this out of the way. And one other thing I'd like to mention before I go into this is that this was part of a set. And over here on the side, I do have the 5 passenger cars that came with this engine. And K-Line made some of the best passenger cars. And this being the original K-Line, these cars are original K-Line cars. They are not K-Line by Lionel cars. But now I'm going to show you what I've done to this engine to make it command control with rail sounds and all the other features that I've added. So starting here in the tender, this is where most of the magic has happened. This is where I've stored most of the electronics for this Tmcc and rail sounds upgrade. Starting here, this is the Electric Railroad Cruise Commander, and this gives me the ability to have cruise control in this engine, which is a slow constant operation, such as things you see on legacy engines today. Behind it is actually the rail sounds that I've added. This is not an Electric Railroad product. This is a Lionel product. This is the powered motherboard. So that means instead of there being a motherboard, a power board, and the rail sounds board, there's just a motherboard and this rail sounds board here with a little chip on top. So that makes it very small, and I could fit it in this small tender. And I decided to use a rail sounds package from Lionel, which is Rail Sounds 4, out of their New York Central Dreyfuss Hudson. So while it doesn't have the correct crew dialogue, it does have a good whistle that I feel fits this engine well, and I decided to use that. Right here is a external volume pot that I added, as this motherboard doesn't have a volume pot on it. So I decided to add that, and I drilled a hole through the frame, and now this fits on the frame, and it actually works real well with this setup. Then here is the speaker baffle and speaker. This is an Electric Railroad speaker baffle, but the speaker inside is a Lionel Mini Fat Boy, and lets out a decent amount of sound for its size. Now if I lift this shell here, you can see here is the light, the backup light. That is the original backup light, but I just have hooked it up to this the cruise commander so that when I put it in reverse it turns on, and it's just held in there with some double-sided tape. And then here is the antenna wire, and the antenna is just glued inside this coal load, and when it's turned upside down you can't see anything, but it will go through the plastic coal load and reach the signal. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've done here in the tender, and it fits real well inside this tender, and I'm glad that it's turned out this way. One other thing I'd like to mention is the tether that I used in between the engine and the tender. This is a MTH, I think it's a, actually this is an MTH 10 pin connector, and I took this out of an old MTH engine that I had, and I just wired it in to this setup I have here. It took a little adjusting and a lot of soldering and splicing of wires, but I finally got it all set up, and it works real well now. So now let me put the tender shell back on and then show you what I did with the engine, and then we'll start it up and I'll show you what this engine is like to run around. So here's the engine with the shell off, and there's a lot going on in here, so let me just explain it. So starting here, this is the other end of that tether from the MTH engine that I added in, and I had to have a 10 pin connector because there's so many wires going in between this and the rest of the train. Here on the motor there's this tack tape with the black and white, and the reason I have that on there is I added Gunrunner John's or John Will's Chuff generator to this train, and it works really well, and you can program it to whatever chuff rate you would like. Personally, I like 2 chuffs per revolution. Even though that's not the most realistic thing, I still just like the sound of it, and I just leave it at that. But I could easily adjust it to 4 chuffs, and it would be fine. The next thing here, inside this big ball of heat shrink tubing, is the Super Chuffer. And what that is another product from Gunrunner John Will, and Henning's Trains, and that's for smoke operation. Up here in the engine I added a fan driven smoke unit from Lionel, and it is controlled by this, so when the engine chuffs, this motor here will puff out smoke, and it also regulates or helps make sure that the smoke unit won't burn up, because the fan is always running. Even when the engine is just sitting, there's smoke coming out, preventing there from being any burning inside this smoke unit. And that's about it that's going on in here, but these 2 products that I added on here are very nice, and they make this engine so much better. And then another thing is that there is a cab light here that illuminates the firebox here, and that's something that was already on this engine when I got it. Then the last thing actually is I still left the smoke unit switch, so I can turn this off, and that will turn off the element that's inside of here, but then the fan will keep running to make sure that there's nothing overheating. And yeah, I really like this setup I have in here, and it works real well, so I'll now put this back on the engine, and then we'll put it on the track and start it up, and I'll show you some of the features. So as you see now, the fan-driven smoke unit is on, and it's heated up, and it is pouring out smoke. This is one of my, this engine is probably the best smoker I have in my collection now. That fan-driven smoke unit and the Super Chuffer just mate well together and let a lot of smoke out. First off, I'll show you the whistle. Yeah, that whistle right there is pretty much why I chose this sound file. I feel that streamlined Hudson whistle fits very well with this engine, and I just really like that sound. Here's the bell. Here's the crew talk sounds. This is just the kind of jibber jabber sounds. Here's the blowdown. And here is the crew talk or the tower comm. But this is, of course, not specific to this engine, so it's going to be talking about a New York Central engine instead of a Reading engine. But here he goes.
New York Central 5452, you are cleared outbound.
So those are all the sounds, and I really like this upgrade. And before I connect some cars to this and pull it out, I'm going to show you one last feature I did with this is the directional lighting. So here is the front light turning off when I put it in reverse. And now let me go show you the reverse light working when I put it in reverse. So I've got some cars hooked up to it, and they are the Reading Crusader cars. So now I'm going to move it out.
New York Central 5452, you are cleared outbound.
So that about wraps it up for this look at my K-Line Crusader. This engine was great when I got it. Just the sounds didn't really work, and it was just a basic conventional engine. So I added command control, and now I really love this engine. All the features are amazing. I love the rail sounds, and I definitely like that this engine smokes a lot. And it smokes so much that you might have even saw in the video that it was coming out under here, under the wheels and under this front where the cylinders are. So that's very neat. I really like this engine. I'm glad that it has came out the way I was expecting it to. So that pretty much wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, like, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. Comment below, and tell others about the channel. I'm Sid, and I'll see you next time, guys.